Hello, darling loves. Welcome to another episode of Cosmic Conversations. My name is Anya Light. Cosmic Conversations is a podcast where I speak with truly astounding individuals. These are visionaries and creatives and healers who are really making a difference in our world today. And we talk about how they uniquely explore our beautiful cosmos. Today, I am here with my friend and colleague, Natalie Vorst. Natalie is the spiritual leader for the Unity of Toledo Church. She is a life coach. She has a history in social service and outreach. And she is here to be love in the world and to raise the vibration of humanity. And I am so excited to speak with her today. Thank you, Natalie, for coming on Cosmic Conversations today.
Thank you, Anya. Thanks for what you do. Thanks for having these conversations. It's really exciting to be here today with you.
Woohoo! All right. So diving in, I'm curious, Natalie, as a spiritual teacher, I'm sure you've gotten this question a million times, bear with me, but how did you get started on the spiritual path? Were you young? Was it not so long ago? How did it all begin for you?
I have always been uh, a spiritual person on a quest to see what the universe is about, to see what all of this stuff is about. And at a very young age, it was very real and visceral to me. It was not this ethereal, theoretical type thing for me. I remember as a little kid, my mom said, "Oh, we're going to see Jesus. We're going to Jesus's house." And she meant church. I had been to church. I had no desire to go back there, but I was packing my bags because I thought I was going to Nazareth to see where Jesus lived. Like it was a very big quest journey for me. Um, and I loved that idea. And so when I found myself back at church, I wasn't that happy about it. But I had always been connected to it. And I started doing youth ministry in the Catholic Church at 14. And that led me to a lot of different opportunities. And then I did prison ministry, loved that. I did served as like a volunteer coordinator for a church when I was in college. And actually, I spoke at a Catholic church in college, which was very progressive at the time. And so then I really kind of fell away from that in some respects because the Catholic Church was not very accepting of women in leadership, and I could see that. And so, long story short, started. I had gone to this church and had been in ministry in some way or another throughout my whole life, and left a church because of their lack of acceptance for LGBTQ. And I felt so strongly that that was just not okay. And we found ourselves, I say we because a good friend of mine left as well. We found ourselves at Unity. And when I walked in at Unity, they were speaking my language. I no longer was doing the translation of their beliefs to my own. I felt like all the books I had been reading all this time for fun, like Dr. Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay. I was always, even Gary Zukav, like just different things, Deepak Chopra. These were regular names to me. And I loved that it was there. So I got involved at Unity, and one thing led to another, very guided in many ways. And a door opened for me to be the spiritual leader there. And I walked through. I was I was quite called to be there in many ways. In fact, I always question like this, the calling that people talk about when you that go to be a minister or whatever. I felt like I had been wading in that water for a long time. It made sense, but it wasn't really, it didn't really happen for me. The way it unfolded, the way it happened, my dear friend Marion Brannon, I had gone to ask her to be the minister at Unity of Toledo. I was the president of the board at the time. And we were sitting at the Dirty Bird restaurant downtown during lunch hour. And I asked her, and she looked at me and said, "Why don't you do it?" And nothing unusual or uncommon about those words, but it was like a javelin through the heart for me. I felt literally called in that moment. So that's what brought me there. And um, I've never looked back. It felt so strongly like a calling. I was willing to go through all the different hoops and different things I had to do to be where I am. And I'm the happiest I've ever been.
Yeah,
There's
we were chatting right before I hit the record button, and you were saying this is the happiest that you've ever been in your entire life. And
yes,
you're a ray of sunshine. I mean, you were definitely a ray of sunshine before, but your rays have increased in intensity in the past few months.
yeah,
So, would you be willing to share any part of your journey from the past few months? Because I know a lot of my viewers can sense this beautiful awakening time. We are literally in the great awakening. And um, the thing that many of us have been thinking about and contemplating for much of our lives. And it's here now. And it's creating such beautiful openings and healings for people, and yet it can be like somewhat tricky to navigate as well. So how have you blossomed in the past months or the past year or two, and maybe some of the challenges that you've had to navigate through with this increased energy that's coming onto the planet?
yeah. Great question. If I scrolled back to when I started this work, one of the interesting things that happened to me when I got this position, when I started this work, is I knew it was like my dream job. And I had been unhappy in at some level in all the jobs previous. There was just always something to, rebel against or something. And that actually became part of my persona in some respect, is that there was something to rebel against. And then when you get your dream job, you're living the dream, there's nothing left to rebel against, although you will find it. You will, and I absolutely found it. But I found myself going through a detoxing of competitiveness,
Mm,
and really releasing those things that I held on to, that I thought were foundational feelings or foundational beliefs, but they were really broken thoughts. And so they were really actually things that were keeping me from accessing a higher level of energy for myself. So lovingly taking the time to just say, "Silly human, Natalie, let's just look at this," and just bring it into the light. And I've done a lot of journaling. Journaling for me is very powerful.
mm,
There's something about pen to paper that gets my mind working in a different kind of beta wave that just really helps me to flow and open.
mm,
Um, but then fast forward to these past few months, I have had a deep feeling of my heart chakra just really breaking open. And there's been some pain that's poured out of it that I didn't know was still there. But there's also been this release that feels like I'm kind of sensitive. I'm
yes.
sensitive to everything that's going on. And there's a beautiful side of that. I was telling you earlier, I just walked outside at one point and was like, look how beautiful the sun is. Look how beautiful this space is, and how gorgeous the world is that we're living in. And that feels so good. And then there's also times when I feel really sensitive, and I just, instead of going back to that broken way of thinking of um, being a victim to what's happening, I really have done something that Brene Brown suggests, is that I stay curious.
Mm,
Stay curious in that process. Um, and that has helped me to go, oh, let's not take ourselves too serious.
mhm,
Look at this. This is interesting. Um, and I shared with you a little earlier, but I loved this writing exercise that I've done, which was suggested by another podcaster. His name is Case Kenny, now that I think about it. And he said, you write, he talked about writing your life like it was a season of shows, and you wrote the pilot, and the pilot is always a little rocky and has its own set of rules. And then he's like, if you're going to step into your next season, which I loved that. The idea of stepping into my next season meant that I was progressing, and that
Mm,
what nothing I had gone before was to be judged as wrong
mhm.
or failures or any of that. It's just, it was the first season. You're getting your sea legs, you're figuring it out. But the success for a second season is to change the rules. And one of the rules that I've changed is that um, I'm not a victim of anything ever. And when I find myself in those modes and those things, I I I kind of sit there and go, I see you. I see you. I love you. I'm going to just love you right now. I don't necessarily like you, but I am going to love you because that's what's needed in those moments of myself, just loving myself. So that's been a new rule for me. And I've been calling it Natalie 2.0, but I shared with you too. I feel like this is the second half of my life that's starting. And I've been calling it the golden age of Natalie. That's,
It's so
that's what I'm
good.
calling it. That's the new season's
It's
name.
so good.
Well, it feels good because when you release the victim attitude and the stories and the different constructs that I've made around being a victim to what's happening to me, all of a sudden you are not all of a sudden, really in moment to moment, you become the creator. It feels so empowering. It feels so good. And it feels like, oh, the world is working out for me instead of having to protect myself from what's coming at me because nothing's coming at me.
Absolutely. And so you said the world, the universe is working for me, is has my benefit in mind. That is why I was drawn to Unity of Toledo. So I'll just give a little backstory for the audience that I've been attending Unity of Toledo for, I think, 4 or 5 years now. I sort of have lost track, something like that.
Yes.
Okay. And I began the journey attending and then slowly got more involved and then started offering guided meditations with the congregation and giving like healing sessions with people one-on-one. And it's been awesome and very feeling very nourishing for myself, because I too came from also a religious background, very fundamentalist, fire and brimstone Presbyterian. And Jesus was portrayed as someone to aspire to, but we could never really reach him. He was always just kind of up there. And we were kind of like these pathetic, lowly sinners. And it was a bit traumatizing. And I in my early 20s, rebelled and became an agnostic. And I never went so far as to say atheist, but I definitely like went headlong into intellectualism and trying to find my meaning through being smart, basically, but then just kept hitting all these walls. And the spiritual part of me never really died. It just got, I smushed it for a while. And then I, I was drawn to Unity of Toledo. A friend invited me to go with him. And, I was like, all right, whatever, and and I got there, and that was one of the messages was, the universe is working for you, for your highest abundance. And it felt like the church that I, would have been nice to go to when I was a kid,
Yep.
oh, hi dog.
Yeah. My baby dog. She heard
Hello.
us. She has to be on. She has to come on.
Yeah. And so I really resonated with that so much, and resonated with all the vibe there. And um so and then going into also what you said before about your heart opening, I'd like to hear more about that specifically, um, because for a lot of my clients and students and friends right now, it feels like we're all talking about the heart chakra lately. Like that is just it's probably the most discussed chakra right now in my world. And so what's up with the heart chakra right now, Natalie? And in your relationship with the Christ consciousness, is that consciousness helping you open your heart? How is it related to that, if at all? um I'd love to hear about that.
I feel like this is the way my mind is seeing it, is my heart chakra is opening, and it's opening wider because it's realizing it doesn't have to be closed for protection, because it's the facade of victimhood is falling away and the true empowerment is coming. And so it's almost like a tractor beam to me, that I'm being pulled deeper into Christ consciousness
Mm,
through my heart chakra,
mm.
and I'm feeling connected to people in very powerful, loving ways. Like I could go to the gas station and feel like the attendant, I'm like, oh, I just love you.
Mm.
And just, people that I would normally have maybe like felt silly saying, oh, I just love you. That's just fallen away. And then there was something really profound. For me, it was always easier to love someone else, but there has been a shift of this tractor beam exchange. Like I say tractor beam because I, for some reason, have this. I'm an '80s kid, so Care Bear stare. You remember that old cartoon?
Like not, no, not really.
Well, probably not, but they would stare, and their power would light up, and it would beam toward what they were trying to heal or do.
Oh,
Um, and I really feel like there's this wonderful consciousness that is calling me, and it's talking to me, and it's reciprocating back ways to love myself very deeply.
mm,
And it's happening through my heart chakra because I need to love myself, and I need to feel what it is to love myself. And what I misconstrued is that when I'm loving someone else, the love I feel that I think is coming from them is actually a mirror of my own love back to me.
yeah.
And so what I've attributed to other people is it's beautiful. I certainly don't want to take away the caring things and loving things people do, but it really what we do, we feel it back. So it's like, oh, that's what it feels like to be loved by me. I'm loving myself. And that's a very powerful gift in this process. And opening your heart chakra to know that your job is to love yourself deeply.
Mm.
And I was often raised, especially as a girl, like if you to love yourself was to be conceited or to be full of yourself or
Selfish.
selfish. Yes. And it couldn't be farther from the truth that loving myself empowers me um, to really feel safe in the world, to feel like I am drawing things to me that I desire, that what I desire is actually already belongs to me,
Mm, yeah.
which leads us a little bit into manifestation
Yeah.
and different ways of looking at that. When you love yourself, you don't have to beg for anything.
Yeah.
You don't have to chase anything unless you have fun in the chase. You know, in feminine energy, chasing is not really our big thing. We are receivers, and that's an important, beautiful thing to have. And I know that each of us has feminine and masculine energy. So there's things I like to chase too, for
Mhm.
sure. But mostly, what I realize is that when I get out of that hunter gatherer mentality and I turn into this wonderful magnet, knowing that all the world is showing up for me exactly as I need it, that's what's actually bringing me the most joy. That's what's actually firing up and empowering my heart chakra to stay open and to stay clear and to really have this beautiful exchange with Christ consciousness, that I am an extension of that, that it is me, that it's in here. Um, and it leads what I talk about on Sunday. It leads my everyday. Like I could walk out of the front door of my home today and I will have an experience that basically is just with it with Christ consciousness.
Mhm.
Um, it's a lot more fun. It's a very fun way to live. Um,
Absolutely.
it's just been a very engaging piece. And if your heart chakra is opening, it can feel you will feel what I consider when you're raising a vibration, if you looked at it on like a chart, looks like a wavy line. And as the vibration gets higher, the line gets tighter and tighter and tighter. And when you're first in this moment, when you're first doing something new for yourself, you're in the warble area, like the peaks and valleys can be a little farther apart. So you're feeling them a little farther apart. So sometimes you will dip and you'll be like, why am I in this dip? I thought I was done with this. And
Mm-hmm.
what you're called to remember in the Christ consciousness is that you're just as geared to go back up in an upward swing, because you're basically raising that vibration to a higher and higher thing till you adjust to it, and then it doesn't feel like the warble as much.
I love that. So, talking more about the Christ consciousness, how do you, Natalie, perceive Christ as a being? So, we um, we are all one being, and yet we're also unique. We have a personality which we need to honor. We can't ignore our personality, nor should we. And yet we're all one. It's this interesting paradox. And so I'm endlessly fascinated by different beings and how they are different and similar. So I'm a channel, so I bring in different beings through me, and they all have a unique, personality. The one I channel the most is Rama, the Hindu god. I don't know if you've heard of Rama. But he's hilarious and kind of a trickster. He's kind of always like, he's kind of, he just, he kind of swears, and he's like kind of just, he can be like really blunt. And then in comparison to like maybe the Arcturian energy, which is like very soothing and soft and like almost like a feather. It's just like barely there. And so in your diving deep into the Christ energy, because that's the Unity of Toledo. I mean, unity, all the Unity churches, I believe they honor the different masters and different enlightened ones.
Mhm.
But it seems like, at least what I understand, they maybe focus on Christ a bit more because it's
Mhm.
the American culture and it kind of like goes along with that. Or is that
Could be the influence of the American culture, sure. But yeah, definitely, it has. So I wanted to make a distinction about a couple of things. Like, one of the things that Unity does is they talk about Jesus as a way shower of the Christ consciousness.
ah
That Christ is not Jesus' last name. That it's, Christ consciousness is available to all of us. And that's what the Buddha was tapped into. That's what, anyone of any enlightenment, that is what they're tapping into, is this collective consciousness. And we call it the Christ consciousness as a signifier of an elevated consciousness back to the oneness.
mm-hmm,
And so what Jesus did is he showed the access points
mm,
to the Christ consciousness. And some people that really resonates with, and because Jesus, they can see Jesus as the man who accessed this Christ consciousness. The church I was raised in, the Catholic Church, it was so important, like that Jesus was up on this unachievable pedestal,
mm-hmm.
and that nobody could, there was, no one could reach that. And Christ, Jesus himself said that anyone can access this, and you will access it, and you'll do more. And to me, that's the higher empowerment, and why I love this work is that each and every one of us has the opportunity to connect to the oneness. And each and every one of us has a wonderful high call to be connected and to understand your personality and the ego that comes with that personality, and allow it to be a tool in your tool belt instead of the thing that guides you. That Christ consciousness is actually what guides you. And so, where I tap into that is, right now I'm talking to you, but there's also a part of me that's observing this conversation. And I, as a person that can recognize that, and the observer to me is a part of the Christ consciousness.
Mm,
Ego is what will try to look good in this, let me primp it up a little bit. The,
yeah.
like that will be part of the silly humanness of Natalie, is
Mm-hmm.
that, and me as an individuation has come here, um, for for this experience, to understand it, and to understand what it is to look at and look, be a part of Christ consciousness from this small individuation. There's the macro looking out, and it's a different view from being the micro looking at the macro, if that makes sense.
It does.
The view is going both ways. And so I try to remember that. And I really love the feelings in meditation and things of connecting to a higher consciousness. And that's why I love connecting to people, because I feel like I can see that in you when I'm talking to you. And yes, I like Anya, but I'm really interested in the spirit of Anya and what it is that's underneath there. I'm really interested in seeing the mirror of Christ consciousness in other people.
Yeah.
So for me, I very much love Buddhism. I have looked, I have family that have a sangha, and I talk to them regularly about it. I love having the multiple influences, because to me, the multiple influences help to give a beautiful mosaic picture, which is what the human Natalie really loves to see. But the Christ consciousness is aware of it all the time. So the Christ consciousness within me has no need to have it must be Jesus. That's the way shoulder.
Would it be accurate, or would it be resonant for you to say that love consciousness could be a synonym for the Christ consciousness?
Yeah, that would probably be, they could probably be saying the same. Yeah, because Christ definitely is reverts back to, or refers back to Jesus for many people.
Yeah. Yeah. And even myself, I think I didn't quite understand the way that you were perceiving it till now.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I was perceiving it as like more of the energy of that incarnation.
Mm-hmm. And it's
So,
more than that. It's
yeah.
Jesus was like a human incarnation that found the access points
Yeah.
through his own life to access the kingdom of God, which is that the kingdom of God really is the oneness. It really is the joy of being in that connected oneness. And when you're in that space, that's why every Sunday I talk about, the kingdom of heaven is here on earth. And Jesus talked that way too. And it was like people couldn't see it, almost like um, it's almost like it was at a different level, or that it was a hologram that we were in, or some people call it the matrix. But it's often just a shift in perception of understanding yourself in as a part of a bigger consciousness.
Well, it's interesting because when Jesus was living at that historical time period, he was just so advanced compared to so many people at that time. And I actually was thinking about how if he came now, I don't think it would be such a drastic shift because of this great awakening that we're in now. He would be, I think, more accepted. I think it wouldn't be as wild and controversial right
Mm-hmm.
now, which just speaks to where we're at as
Mm-hmm.
a collective right now. I mean, um, just to, I've had people in my life over the past about year or so who I would have never ever thought that they would open up the way that they have. They were pretty dogmatic or pretty close-minded or whatnot. And I've seen them blossom, and I'm just blown away by this. So yeah, we're in a really beautiful time right now. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
and not to be like, not agreeing with you about the Christ consciousness piece, but Christ is here right now.
Mm,
And Jesus is here right now, and he always has been, because we are all one with this individual person, Jesus, because
mm,
he is also part of the collective consciousness. And
mm.
so it's so funny, because for some reason I'm thinking about this scenario that there's no new water on earth. Water is always transferred and moved, but there's nothing new coming in. So
Mm,
the water we drink today could actually have touched the lips of Jesus himself, because the particles, everything, it shuffles through and it's like, so there is nothing really that special or different or elevated or separate,
yeah,
because that's what elevation does. Elevation causes a separateness.
yeah,
There is no separation between you or I or Jesus himself or or the Buddha, or any, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, like Mother Teresa, all of these, all of these folks that are upheld as these spiritual, the Dalai Lama. I mean, now to be honest, there's a feeling. I've met the Dalai Lama a couple of times.
Mm.
And when you're in his presence, there is a lightness that is palpable,
Mhm.
that you're just in the presence of someone who's connected,
Mhm.
and your soul recognizes that because it feels love.
Yeah.
And love feels really good for a reason. That's the magnet I'm talking about. When you turn yourself into a magnet versus someone who's chasing, you realize that, oh, you are love, and you are loved, and you are part of this already. So everything is coming to you. And the human ego is the chaser and the hunter gatherer in many ways. It thinks you have to make something to create something.
I love that term you keep using, hunter gatherer. I
Yeah.
love that.
Well, because, and I use it on purpose because it's an old way of talking about how we as humans evolved,
Yeah.
and then we found agriculture, and now we're finding spirituality, and
Yes.
we're elevating this experience of being human, for sure.
You know, one thing I would love to get your opinion on is, so I have noticed that in this great awakening, there are people who are in the phase of being how I used to be, very intellectual, very in my mind, very rational, very like have to kind of logically suss it all out. And they get very triggered and very frustrated and upset with me and with the kinds of messages that we're sharing, because to them it appears very similar to the old way of religion, of putting Jesus on a pedestal and like that separation energy
Hmm.
of, I mean, we were talking before the interview about like, the some churches being ridiculously wealthy, and then the people that go to this church are poor, and there's this like discrepancy, there's this inequality with many of the old paradigm religious ways. And so the kind of like new humanity that you and I are advocating is very much based in equality, very much based in, like you just said, Christ is here now in you, in me. There's no one to worship per se. There's only loving ourselves and each other. So how do we bridge the gap? How do we dialogue with the people who are in that mode of perhaps they've been raised in the church and were disillusioned, or they're just for whatever reason very turned off by conversations like this? Like, how do you approach that?
I trust their path. If they're turned off and
Mm-hmm.
resistant, that's exactly where they're supposed to be,
Mm.
because I've been there. And if someone like me has been there and has come to this point, then I know, and I know that the universe is there for everyone's greatest good, then it is there for everyone's greatest good. And I need do nothing but simply allow their path. Like, I don't need to offer more resistance to it.
I love
If this
that.
is your path, then absolutely. Your path is leading you exactly where you need to go. And I'm going to love you enough to trust that.
I love
And
that.
I've spent a lot of time in my time being an empathic person who would feel the pain of others. And so I would be in this pain that I needed to get out of, didn't want to feel it. So I would try to fix what was around me, fix the discord of others, instead of understanding that that's not my energy, and it's okay that I feel it, and that I take back my own power of connection. Because when I'm in connection and alignment, I can really manage, and the love feeling overwhelms the pain feeling, soothes it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the greatest elixir to it. But what
Mm-hmm.
my human self was thinking is, if I just fix this problem, then I will be out of pain until, of course, the next problem comes along.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not a I was thinking I needed, then my first reaction was to separate myself, which sounds like what you're talking about with folks in the intellectual space. They're probably feeling the pain of it all. The injustice of it all does create pain, especially in the human understanding through our individual mind, especially through the ego understanding. And then, and there's a greater thing, and I trust this greater thing is calling them as much as it called me, and that their path is to resist right now. They need to break out of that to see themselves, which is exactly in some ways why you and I are here, because we're a part of the oneness. Why would we ever come here and be an individuation? Because we wanted to see it from this angle. So a lot of folks who would disagree with you or us or what we're saying because they intellectualize and they have a rational idea and we need to be logical and we're too woo woo. That's perfect. Go ahead and absolutely be you. That's exactly the role you're supposed to be in right now. For the rebel in me, I'm like, yes, I have something to rebel against. It's a wonderful reminder to the rebel in me to love and accept someone for who they are.
I love that.
Because that is exactly the thing I needed to have. I finally started to heal myself when the community I was steeped in and the someone within myself opened her heart chakra enough that she was able to really access these deeper thoughts, this deeper sense, and to release the rebellion, release the resistor. And I have plenty of resistance to work on still. Trust and believe. I know that. But what I realize is that, and I love that you had said you were an intellectual after you had been disillusioned by the church. I know that was a path for me too. And trust, so having someone trust my path instead of trying to fix me was the actual key that unlocked the gates I was keeping myself in.
Exactly.
So I think the best thing we can do is just literally love, just love.
Yeah.
And if they're saying hurtful words to you, love yourself. What is hurting you about that? Like, oh, that was really hurtful. How dare, oh, wait, not how dare you. What about me could actually be hurt by that? I love Eckhart Tolle in A New Earth. He gives that as a cue that your ego's engaged when you're like going, how dare you? He's like, oh, that's a cue phrase.
Yep.
And he's like, that's when you absolutely know you're coming from ego. So then if you can see that in yourself and pause, take a step back, who better to love an intellectual than someone who's been there?
Yes.
So no wonder they're showing up for you too, because they're showing up for you to say, hey, is there anything within you that still resonates with that actually could be hurt? And I think the truest answer is no, but there is things the ego's still working out. And so that's the opportunity for you.
Absolutely.
And for me, I don't mean to say just you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the opportunity for me, is looking at stuff like that.
Yeah.
And when I'm chemically, though, charged by it, oh, somebody's home. When I'm chemically charged by it, I can get that full feeling of I'm angry, I'm frustrated, all those emotions are there. And in the heat of the moment, if someone's like, calm down, I'll be like, no, I will not calm down.
I am right.
I am correct. And let me tell you 8 ways from Sunday exactly how. But what I've learned in that process is like circumventing those emotions is not the way. Just being with the emotion. What is this emotion telling me? And that's when I said, get curious, because these emotions are there for me, not against me, even though they feel like total crap. And I really want to get away from them. They're there for me as this wonderful guide that says, hey, you've been here before. And every chance you have, you can learn from these emotions and then choose better. And that is helpful. It's been helpful to me. And it's not to say that I won't be, engaged in emotion in the next 10 minutes or whatever. It happens. It's a repeating life pattern.
Beautiful.
You can always be invited to that party. And I think I said this to you earlier. I was invited to that party earlier today. Someone who spoke to me with a very snarky text. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. I don't need to RSVP for that party anymore.
Yep.
I don't even have to show up. So, or send my regrets. None of it. I just let it go.
Exactly. So we're going to start bringing our beautiful cosmic conversation to a close. But before we do, I'm just wanting to invite you, Natalie, to tune in to see, is there anything that's on your heart to share with the audience about anything at all?
Hmm. Hmm. I think the only thing that's coming to mind is that the whole idea of the world being an amazing, abundant place, and that the whole idea of manifesting is that you don't have to strive for one thing. You can believe and tap into this trust of the universe showing up for you, this trust of the that you've not been sent here to be in this state of lack or poverty in any aspect of your life, and that you are here to actually feel fulfilled, which I think is something that I didn't get for a very long time, that I thought I had to become worthy of being fulfilled. And how that played out in my life was was feeding this lack mentality. And when I realized I didn't have to be worthy anymore, that I already am, and that the universe was showing up for me, I had so much fun watching the universe show up for me moment to moment, day to day. And now I go from, I was telling a friend the other day, I go, I feel like I am a frog on lily pads jumping from one satisfactory moment to the next. Like, this feels good. Oh, now this feels good. Now this feels good. And, if I miss the lily pad and I end up in the water, it cools me off. I get a different perspective. Like, there's just, you're unflappable in your commitment to being love and getting back to feeling into the satisfaction that it is to be one with the universe, because
Mm,
it is so satisfying.
mm,
And I have found my deepest happiness in that satisfaction. So when relationships don't work out for me, used to be devastating for me. And now I go, oh, okay, something different is happening. What is my next satisfying thought? What is my next supportive thought? What is my next way of loving myself? These are not questions I asked in my 20s. I allowed myself to be devastated by it, or to feel wronged by it, or to stay in that negative hurt position of being a victim to what's happened or other people's choices.
mm.
And I've changed. Those are the new rules of Natalie 2.0, the golden age. Yeah, she doesn't live by those rules anymore. And so, and it's not to say that I don't remember them and I don't remember what it is to live by them, and that I can't come across an old broken thought that really can feel like it wants to take hold. But I have new tools now, new tools to say that I see you, and that the whole time I'm playing this game, I'm really loving this idea of finding, oh, this is my next satisfactory, this is my next joyful experience. And then also just really loving and enjoying other people. Like I saw the Facebook post you post about dancing by the river, and I took a moment and I was like in the sunshine with you guys, even though I physically couldn't be there. The beauty of the mind is you can just go there sensory wise and just feel it and create it. And I
Mm,
thought, yeah, I love that idea. So there's no more fear of missing out either. Somebody
mm.
will somebody will post a picture of it, and you can be like that movie, I think it was called Jumper. If you can see it, you can jump in there and be there.
Ah,
And I always thought, oh, that'd be a fun superpower to have. Like, I could think of Paris and I could be there. And I thought, you've been to Paris. You can think of Paris. You can be there. Just like I can visit my grandparents' old farmhouse. Whenever I really want to feel comfortable, I just walk through that door and I smell the old wheat on the fields being harvested and the sweetness of that in the air, and I'm there. And I thought, these are ways to get back to that satisfaction and to calm the Natalie that gets scared, or the Natalie that is feeling a broken thought really keenly in the moment.
mm.
And so I don't know. I love that idea. And I think I shared with you earlier too, and this was before this, but I'll try to wrap it up here. But one of the things I love is I have a good memory. And I've loved that. One of the things that of people that practice the art of good memory is they build what's called a palace, a memory palace. And so they build this, go to this familiar place and they can remember things because they place it in different rooms of this very familiar place. And I thought, I love a memory palace for soothing when your heart chakra is opening and you're feeling unstable, to create a memory palace for stability, for places where you feel completely wrapped in love.
Mm.
So that when you are dealing with broken thoughts, you can go and sit on the porch of your grandparents' house if that's where you felt safe. And you can rock on that swing while you allow these emotions to flow through you, and you can look at them from that safe place.
Mm.
And that to me was very empowering. And that to me is living abundantly, knowing that you always have these great experiences to create and then go back to it if you need to in your memory palace. So
Oh, thank you, Natalie. That was just listening to you talk today has been so profound for me. I feel very grounded. One of the things, I mean, everyone's wisdom shines through differently. And for me, like you ground me, that you just put me in my body, which is good because normally I'm flying around out, and so like I come back in my body and I just feel peaceful and content. Like it's good to be a human.
yeah.
So thank you for sharing your wisdom today. I really, really appreciate it. Very eloquent, very articulate.
Well,
I
thank you.
yes. Um and yeah, I feel as if we are on a very similar wavelength with the work that we're doing, creating this new earth of abundance and joy, and jumping from awesome moment to awesome moment, in the playfulness and sunshine. So yes, thank you very much. And blessings to you as you continue the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
And maybe we can have another chat again sometime soon. I would really love that.
I would love that too. I feel like we just nicked the top of the iceberg on
I
abundance
know.
and manifestation. So I'd love to talk about that. That's a joy in my life. But this has been wonderful. Thank you so
Cool.
much for this opportunity. I
Yeah.
really appreciate you. And
And we're
I love
gonna, oh,
soul sister
sorry.
stuff.
What'd you say?
I love the soul sister connection.
Me too. And I'm going to post a link to Unity of Toledo so that
Great.
to the Facebook page so that because there is well, I think you're going to continue with the online services,
We
right?
are.
Okay,
Mhm.
so every Sunday you can access Unity's service online for free on Facebook. Is there any other platforms or is it just Facebook?
Right now it's Facebook, but we are
Okay.
looking to stream live on TikTok
Okay.
and possibly other platforms as we can connect with them. But yeah,
Okay. Yeah. The services are so beautiful. The music is always out of this world. Natalie's talks are beautiful. There's also sometimes different guest speakers that come in and share wisdom. So please join us at the Unity of Toledo online. And if you're in Toledo ever, come and check us out too. So yeah,
absolutely. All are welcome and all are accepted and all are loved, which is something I feel powerful about.
it's true. All right. Blessings to all. Thank you for joining us.
Thank
Bye.
you.